So why don't I complicate it even further with the point that you made? So you said earlier on that maybe developments on the ground might provoke Trump to announce a candidacy in the short term rather than the long term. So we now have the subpoena's been received, and that battle is now drawn. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about where it's going. But you have the final hearing of the committee, a sort of strong indictment, and this is more my ballywick, but every day things are getting more serious for him. I think in the Mar-a-Lago investigation, little things that I, as a former prosecutor, recognize are really putting him in the crosshairs. So broadly speaking, I just wonder about your thoughts about the relationship between these two broad things. Do you think, in fact, that the likelihood of prosecution will make him jump in, will make him stay back? He certainly is telegraphing as if he's going to come in, but he doesn't always tell the truth. Let me put it that way. I wonder if you have any sense of how of the relationship between the dynamic of the midterms and Donald Trump's fortunes over the next couple of years.
Well, in some ways, he faces the same challenge that Bill Clinton faced in 1995. Yeah. The number one job was to clear the field and to make sure nobody ran against him. And, the great Harold Ickes did it. And there were people thinking about running. I think he gets in for two reasons. One is to try to clear out some of the field before one of them catches fire. The second is, and this is a perverse political point of view, but these investigations, I think, help him. Remember, there will be multiple candidates. He does not have to get 50% of the Republican Party. And the core Republican Party believes that the entire system is rigged against them, and the only person who really understands them and has their back is Donald Trump. Now, out of the field, one of these other politicians will emerge, and take the mantle. And if I were Trump's advisor, I would say, don't give them the oxygen. Get in and
like as Susan, get in sooner,
and make them oppose him. Make Josh Hawley have to give a speech saying, "I don't support Donald Trump." Make Tom Cotton give that speech. Make Ron DeSantis make that speech. Now, there's people who can make it. Liz Cheney can make it. But I don't know how Republican candidates will thread the needle of what's wrong with Donald Trump. You can have Trumpism without Trump. I don't see anyone who's done that.
Yeah, just to jump in, I agree with that. There's two other factors that would sort of suggest that Trump is leaning in perhaps even more than he was, say, a year ago to running again. One is it's his economic model, right? The second he is not a candidate for president, his fundraising goes down, his relevance goes down. We all stop talking about him so much. And it's hard to imagine that that's something he's willing to voluntarily do. And the same goes for ceding the field to a successor. He's just not, that's not what he's all about. Rather than taking the win and saying, well, yes, Ron DeSantis is absolutely a Trumpist mini-me made in my image, and I'm so delighted that I've reshaped the Republican Party. We all know that psychologically that is not how Donald Trump is wired. And of course, he's immediately hostile and suspicious of Ron DeSantis. I made him, he's not really me, I'm me. And so
he trashed him in the Maggie Haberman book. I mean, it's right.
Well, he has repeatedly. I mean, he's done that publicly already. So I don't think that, that just fits with what we know. And we know an awful lot about the psychological profile of the former president. He also seems to believe, and you can speak, Harry, to whether that is an accurate belief or not, that there's some sort of magical protection cloak that he gets by being a presidential candidate that might forestall an inevitable federal indictment in any of these cases. And he may or may not be right about that, but he does definitely seem to hold that view that this is useful for him as he comes down to decision time for these federal prosecutors.
Can I make one quick point on that? Because I'll forget if I don't, and then I'll see to Josh. Oddly, I think he has it absolutely wrong. I think the establishment in Washington at the Justice Department is struggling with, can we indict a former president? Are we able to, as a country, use the judicial system no matter what he did? I think as a candidate trying to win again and be president again, I think it kind of solves that problem for people at the DOJ, people at the White House, the people who are going to be making these decisions, Atlanta, all of the different New York. All of these people are now saying he prospectively can hurt this country again. We need to use every tool we have in the judicial toolbox.
I agree with well, I'm not sure I agree, and it's more like I just don't know if on Joe's last point, like my gut tells me that being a candidate perversely does just kind of make prosecutors give it a second thought and get a little more nervous about it. But Joe could be right. But I guess I will. The reason I just don't know. I could see that both ways. But what I think is crystal clear is that the conventional wisdom and how Trump and his advisors see it, that there is no way that getting in the race in 2 weeks makes it more likely that he will be indicted or more likely that someone else will be the nominee. And since the man thinks with his brainstem, right, and it's kind of what maximizes safety and power for me, then of course he'll get in. Because why wouldn't he? Well, how, just why would he not? It's a way to keep himself out of jail.
Fear of losing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but then he comes up with some reason why he decides not to run.
But I don't think the Republican base electorate care. In fact, it will energize the base if he is indicted.
Oh my, yeah. He could run from jail. There's no legal impediment. All right, but I'm hearing 3 votes for, because there's no way. I mean, if he's indicted tomorrow, there's no trial for a year. I'm hearing 3 votes for Donald Trump candidate in 2024 relatively soon in the next few months. Is that right?
Agree.
Why not? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.